Welcome to the Cables to Clouds podcast. Cloud adoption is on the rise, and many network infrastructure professionals are being asked to adopt a hybrid approach. As individuals who have already started this journey, we would like to empower those professionals with the tools and the knowledge to bridge the gap.
All right, and welcome back to Cables to Clouds. This is Tim. I'm your host this week, and with me, as always, are my bearded compatriots, Alex Perkins and Chris Miles. You can see that I'm working on getting mine back, and it's going to take probably another week or two until I can catch up to Alex, and then it's going to take a little longer to catch up to Chris. But it's good to see everyone. Alex, Chris, how you doing this week? Alex, how you doing?
Doing good. Just, basic work stuff. I don't really have any big projects or anything going on right now. So just lots of basic client stuff, getting ready for Easter. Easter's coming up this weekend. So
oh, wow, yeah.
Got a big family gathering planned.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of rain coming though. So I don't even know. It might rain through the whole weekend. So we'll see.
You going to do a Easter egg hunt?
Yeah. We planned something in our backyard. It's like our kids are a little bit older, and then all the cousins are like 2 or 3. So
oh, wow.
It's more for them than it is for our own kids, but it's still fun.
Gotcha. What about you, Chris? What's going on in the land down under?
Yeah, man, not much. Work's been good. I'm also preparing for Easter. We have this thing in Sydney called the Royal Easter Show, which my girlfriend convinces me is going to change my life. Apparently it's this giant thing that happens out at the old, basically the old park where they hosted the Olympics. To me, it just sounds like a giant state fair. Like there's all these like shitty little rides and fried food and things like that. So I'm very much looking forward to that. So that'll be on this weekend, and I'll report back next week on how that goes.
Fueling that body for those softball games, right?
Exactly, right.
And all the squash.
Yep. I need all the carbs.
A little taste of home for you.
How about you, Tim? What's up?
We just put the money down on our, I bought the tickets. So my family and I are going to Japan in August. Finally put the money down on that. It's quite expensive, but we've been for years waiting to go. So it was really nice to finally hit the button and buy those tickets and everything. And then I spent the entire next week agonizing and like painstakingly figuring out like where are we going on what days and where are we staying and reserving hotel rooms. And, oh my God, that I don't recognize. That's the part I hate about trip planning. But you kind of have to do it if you're going that far across the world and spend that kind of money. You really got to put the time in.
And you have a family, right? It's like, you can't just show up. Like when I go on more solo trips, I'm like, I'll just book the hotel and then I'll just show up and I'll figure it out. But yeah, you could probably got to do a little bit more planning than that.
For sure. Taking 4 of us across the world. Yeah, that's a little different. So it's been good. And I'm on the other side of it now. It's all planned out. And now we're just waiting for all the opportunities to buy tickets to the stuff. Because we're like, 4 months ahead of time, and a lot of these tickets and stuff for the things we want to do aren't even on sale yet. So we're just kind of waiting to snag them at like 1 a.m. when they go on sale here. So anyway, so with us today is one more guy with a beard, and it's Hank Preston. Thanks for joining us, Hank. Really glad you could join us today. And he's here to talk to us about the new Cisco cloud certification. But before we get started on that, Hank, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Yeah, we are a group of guys with beards. Mine looks a little grayer than some of the else's. I look at Chris's, and he's got that nice, like, solid black still going on, but I'm embracing the gray.
It's you and me, dude. I mean, a few weeks ago, you'd have seen it. I shaved it a few weeks ago, but I'm right there with you. I got the stripes, like maybe like one or two black stripes left at this point. But yeah,
it's only because you're not seeing it in the 4K, man. If I lean closer, it's a little white. I promise.
There you go. Yeah, the beard is switched down here, which is kind of nice, and my hair is starting to pepper. The camera still makes it look solid brown, but when I get the haircut, like it's like a salt and pepper all over the thing. So yeah, age becometh.
Yeah, man. Oh man, I just realized, man, we haven't gotten to hang out in years, dude. I think the last time I saw you was Barcelona 2020, right? Right when COVID was shutting everything down.
God, I mean, that was such an interesting event, right? That last Cisco Live before it went through,
Yeah.
because I talk with folks on this one all the time. It's like we were there and we were all still really kind of innocent about what was coming, right? Nobody knew.
Yeah.
Like I've got pictures of myself like at the end of the event, and we had one of those like big it was like a pirate ship swing, and I've got this big smile on my face, and it's like the next day I go home and like the world shut down like 48 hours later, and I'm like, oh my God, like how innocent we all were, thinking it was, oh, it's no big deal, right?
It was like half a week after we flew home from Spain that like Spain itself was under assault, man. Like, holy crap, we had no idea. I remember Katie McNamara was like, oh, this China thing, like this, they just have terrible healthcare. So that's all that's happening over there. Like nobody could have foreseen, right? But man, it's good to see you again.
Yeah, same.
And appreciate that. So we brought you here because we saw the announcement from Learning at Cisco, and I would love to get into the cloud cert. But for those who may not be aware, and it's a lot of people, Hank, you're actually with Learning at Cisco now, right? How long have you been there?
I am. So it's been, I think it's 4.5, 5, somewhere in there. I'd have to go back and look at a calendar and figure out what it went through. But the journey and the switch is just kind of the nature of being in large corporate or large enterprises, right? HR changes happen, like groups kind of come together and split up. And so I joined the Learning and Certifications team when at the time DevNet and Learning and Certifications came together, and it made total sense, right? We were all focused on kind of educating and getting knowledge that was out there. And so we spent for about a year, a little more than a year, it was one organization. And then as kind of the evolution in that year went through, and it was, I mean, a lot of that was in the pandemic time as well, right? So things were adjusting as it went through, and we came out the other side, and DevNet split back in to focus hard on developer relations, less on the education side, more on the developer relations piece. And it was a strange opportunity to be given the choice as to like where, like not everybody got the chance to kind of weigh in on where to land at this when the split and the reorg happened again. But I was given the opportunity, and I went to DevNet originally because I wanted to focus in and help people, network engineers, understand what automation was all about, right? Educate folks on Python and APIs and model-driven programmability. And so when I looked at what the change was going through, it just made complete sense for me to stay where the education side was going, stay with where we were trying to do on that spot. Not that the developer relations side and kind of partnerships with the business units inside of Cisco and bringing a higher quality APIs and experience isn't important, but my passion is really kind of on that education piece. And so that's what had me stay on the learning side. And so for the last, man, what's it been now? 2.5, maybe plus almost 3 years. Yeah, I carry a learning and certifications badge. I still talk a lot with the DevNet folks, right? Lots of friends over on that side. We just got back from Cisco Live Amsterdam. And as always, I was in the DevNet zone for a bit doing some sessions and whatnot. But yeah, officially learning and certifications and very much enjoying my time over here. Still doing a lot of the same automation focused work. Very heavily involved with the DevNet certifications. I led the team, the project team that brought the DevNet Expert Lab out, which was hugely rewarding, right, to watch and see us get from network engineers not having any idea what automation was about to launching the newest Cisco expert level certification. So yeah, it's been great these last couple of years. So.
That video series from the DevNet Fundamentals, that's how I obviously recognize you most from. I'm sure many other people have seen that as well. So.
I know. It's funny, man. Those are the types of projects I look back on over my time when it was at DevNet. And I'm really, really proud of the work that we did as a group, right? My face was over a lot of the pieces, right? My face and name, and it was fantastic. But it really was a team effort with everybody that was on the DevNet team at the time, and a lot of them are still there. Some folks have kind of split off into other spaces as well. But having the chance and talking with folks that they learned how to make their first API call, right, by watching one of my videos, or they picked up something that I was doing on Twitter and it helped them out, really means a lot to see. And it's still out there, right? I still get people coming up to me and saying, hey, I just watched your video. And I was like, man, some of that stuff's really old, but I'm glad it's still helping people out.
Yeah, I hear you there. I mean, I still get random people, not as impressive, of course, but I get random people comment on like YouTube videos and stuff that I've done years ago. And I'm like, dude, how did you find this? Like, it's so old, right? So I totally get it. But it is really good feeling, you know, when somebody's like, hey, something you did really helped. I enjoyed it, right? That's an awesome feeling.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff relates to the kind of the foundational elements of the cloud too. So I'm sure people that are doing the transition to cloud are probably have probably benefited from those courses as well. So yeah,
that's actually that's a great segue, Chris. So okay, so we know Cisco just released a new cloud cert. Was it called Designing and Implementing Cloud Connectivity? Right, that's the name of it. So talk to us a little bit. Like everybody's excited. You know, we're traditional network engineers. We've made the transition to cloud, so we can appreciate like the entire, I guess, life cycle type of thing here. Talk a little bit about the cert. Tell us kind of why you came, like how you guys came up with it, and what you're kind of targeting or thinking here.
Yeah. Oh man. It was quite the journey, from initial inception to thinking about what a certification that this turned into could be about, and where the fit was, and kind of walking through the process to get there. There's a lot of steps that are along the way. For me, it's the idea around Cisco cloud certifications are kind of a bit of an important topic and a big topic for me personally. I have my name as an author on one Cisco Cisco Press book, and it's the CCNA Cloud book from ages and ages ago. And I don't want to go into that one super deep, because that was like an interesting kind of foray into Cisco's first round of cloud certifications. But what I didn't want was for whatever we did kind of in this next round of cloud related certifications to be like that. And so we were sitting around talking about where should we fit into this space? And my big push, and what I really kind of stuck to, is I wanted us to pick things related to the cloud that Cisco had relevance in, that Cisco customers and network engineers were actually doing, right? Not widely generic cloud stuff, not corner case technologies or little open source projects that we're still trying to figure out what the future was going to be. I wanted to find an area, and I felt that there had to be places that touched this cloud topic that Cisco had relevance in, really, like had a story to tell, had something that really made sense, that a network engineer, somebody that likes to go through and get certifications kind of in the Cisco area, would look at it and be like, yeah, that makes total sense. That's the type of things I'm being asked to do as a network engineer today. And that's what this one is, the first of what we're working on in that space, that relates back to specific types of job tasks in the cloud space. And so my original pitch for this certification was, we know that everywhere organizations are trying to figure out how to connect to the cloud, right? They've got branch offices, they've got data centers, right? Even though everybody's going cloud, we all still have data centers. And then there's cloud resources, and there's infrastructure resources, and there's SaaS offers as well. But every network engineer I talk to is trying to figure out, how do I actually build a network that connects all these things together, and does it securely, and does it efficiently, and does it in a way that we can kind of operationalize and engineer, and doesn't feel like it's this weird bolt-on to the side of the network. Yeah. And so that was kind of the idea behind this, is, okay, can we put together a blueprint or a certification that says, okay, the right way, right's always a tough one, right? Because it's so opinionated, but we'll say like well-designed and architected options to connect your different networks together to the cloud. And that's what this is about. It's called Designing and Implementing Cloud Connectivity. And it's all about creating we'll go back to the analogy, the common one, right? Creating the pipes to connect the different parts of the network together, where part of the network is something off in a public cloud someplace. And then I'm sure we'll go into the details on the blueprint, but that was kind of the part of it, was like basically this generation's WAN design and engineering, right? We're doing this to the cloud. What does that look like? How can we build a certification about that?
Yeah, no, that's awesome and super relevant.
You mentioned a couple things there that caught my ear. You said this is the first, and you also said basically like about the product fit, right? So, I mean, I guess the obvious question is, are there going to be other tracks? Is there going to be like networking in the cloud with some kind of like ACI or cloud network controller kind of element? Right. I guess that's my first question.
Yeah, so I can't go into specifics. I think you guys can all understand why, right? Because so many things are still in motion. But cloud and how cloud fits into enterprises is still a growing area. And I think nobody's going to shoot me inside of Cisco, right? Maybe that's a really bad analogy, but nobody's going to get too upset with me if I say, yeah, we are working on, and there are plenty of other cloud-related certifications that are in different stages of development, right? And there is a large development process, and we look at building out new certifications, because when we put something together, there's a lot of energy, effort, and resources that go into building a certification. And then anybody that is going to go and study for it and earn the certification, right? We don't want something that's only going to be relevant as a flash in the pan. And so we're looking at the things that make sense moving forward across all of the different spaces that Cisco plays in. And so really kind of like, I know not terribly specific answer, but I guess, yeah, we are working on some other pieces. And so keep your ears open. We do have our roadmap published for when we hit and talk about updates to each of the architecture tracks. So security, collab, data center, DevNet. And I would say listen for updates that kind of come and align to that roadmap.
Yeah, so I'm curious as well. So obviously for Cisco to kind of start this back up again and go kind of very focused on cloud connectivity, I'm just curious, what was the feedback you were getting from the community and that kind of spawned the need for potentially looking at these certifications again? What was that feedback loop like?
Oh man. So we definitely engage with our extended group of SMEs from the community to get feedback on what might come from. A lot of what we do when we try to figure out what changes to certifications or what new certifications make sense is we go back and we look at the types of jobs that people are getting hired for, or at least jobs that people want to hire people for, because gosh knows it's really hard to hire anybody for anything these days. I've got job positions open right now that I can't for the life of me find candidates for. So, and so we look at the job descriptions. What are organizations trying to hire for? And so we knew we wanted something kind of network related and hybrid cloud related. And so we looked at postings, right? Things that are posted on LinkedIn and in job postings, and our HR partners kind of help us with that. And so we go through those and see what's in there and try to find the commonalities of the topics that go in. What are the job titles that are after? And then we interview folks. We interview IT directors. We interview network engineers that are specialists. We have a group of SMEs from inside of Cisco that kind of span from engineering to sales to our support partners and TAC, right? What are the types of problems that are coming up, the designs that are being done, our CX organization, which works with customers on design. And then we have a small group of some of our advisory board members that weigh in as well, and we float things past. The feedback we got was cloud is definitely important and primarily similar to what I'd already mentioned, right? Focus in on the things that people are trying to accomplish today, things that fit into the challenges that are in front. There were plenty of folks, I think, that kind of echoed some of my own concerns is don't go too far, right? Don't try to jump into the areas that maybe Cisco isn't seen as kind of the lead player on that side. Like, we're never going to write a certification that's going to go super in depth on any one of the public cloud providers, things that are specific to those, right? That's places for them to deal with. But you'll see, and even on our blueprint for cloud connectivity, we're connecting to public clouds. And so there's elements of AWS and Google and Azure that show up because those are the lead clouds, at least currently,
Right.
across the globe that people are connecting to. And so we try to hook in like the pieces that make sense for the cloud connectivity side that we have. An AWS or a Google or an Azure certification isn't like a mandatory requirement for our cloud connectivity piece, but we expect people that probably have kind of are dabbling on both sides of those if their organizations are going really heavy into hybrid cloud. And so there's a lot of that factors in.
That's a good question. So I noticed that, and having gone over the blueprint and looked at it pretty heavily, actually, let me save that one for later. I wanted to ask. I wanted to first ask the question. It's like almost like a follow up, if you will. This doesn't have a CCNA, CCNP, blah blah. It doesn't have a tiering with it, right? Is the goal with these, and we know that there may be other ones, that are in development, is the goal for these cloud-specific certifications to be more tied to the ecosystem of the products that are interfacing with the cloud, and less around like a tiering of like a expertise tier?
Man, so there's a lot to unpack in that one. So this certification is what we count as it's called a concentration certification. Mm-hmm. We have, ever since the change in how the certifications were done, we internally call it Cert, I think 2.0 or 3.0 or something, but it was when we kind of announced the adjustments and the DevNet certifications came out, and we went down from like 7 CCNAs just to 1 CCNA, right, and made a bunch of changes. And so concentrations have been around since then. And so to earn a professional level certification, say your CCNP Enterprise as an example, you have to take the Enterprise Core exam, and then you have to take one of the Enterprise concentrations. This certification is an Enterprise concentration.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so it factors into earning your CCNP Enterprise. You could take this instead of advanced routing. You could take this instead of what do we have? We have a wireless implementation and a wireless design. So this is like an alternative to those for people that want to earn their CCNP Enterprise. So the professional certification there. There's still just one CCNA. So from an associate's perspective, we have one CCNA, one DevNet associate, one CyberOps associate. If we talk about the expert level certifications, right, this fits into the CCNP Enterprise. And so potentially we could see topics in the future related to the CCIE Enterprise that maybe have some of this that factor into it.
Right.
I'll say that there's no active kind of plans right now to do significant revamps in that space, but there's always an opportunity. But like this isn't like the old days where we had like you could take a Cisco certification exam that really didn't tie into like the traditional certs. I had a bunch of those, right? Because I was a partner before I was at Cisco, so I had a whole bunch of those for different product spaces. That's not this, right? This is very much a concentration, fits into our associate, professional, expert level kind of progression of career certifications.
I just want to make one point that, internally you guys might call it Cert 2.0, but for the plebs like us, we called it Certpocalypse because it was like, whoa.
We use that term changed as well, right? It was a very dramatic, very, very drastic change. But it was needed, right? I think we had
absolutely.
I don't know if getting too wide.
Yeah, I mean, we had cert sprawl all over the place. I mean, I still got in my closet here behind me, like all my old certifications. And I did. I mean, I earned like every CCNA we had. I had a bunch of the professional level certifications. And it just got to the point where it was too much and broad. The recognition that at the associate level, at the entry level into jobs, like people are expected to be kind of not super deep, but lots of broad. And so we've tried to model that in the certifications. And so we still get people complaining that like their CCNA wireless expired and they can't renew it. I'm like, yeah, mine did too. But things change, right? So.
Yeah. God, that was years ago. I remember, and I was at Cisco at the time, and I remember there was a workshop in RTP that I was involved with that whole thing where we were doing the EN core. All that was. I remember it also being even internally to Cisco, it was a very heated discussion for those few days,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, and across Cisco. So yeah, it wasn't done lightly. I just wanted to, yeah, agree with you on that one, Hank. It was definitely not done lightly.
Love them or hate them, right? Certifications are a passionate topic for lots of people, right? We see it all over the place. And we know that. And we talk to our certified community a lot. And we want to support everybody. And that does sometimes mean that we have to make decisions that are not always super popular with everybody. We're not quite as good at it as the folks over in Apple. I mean, I like to think, right, Apple took away like the floppy drive and the CD drive and everybody was up in arms. We're not quite that cool, right? I don't want to say that like we're up at like the Steve Jobs level of like telling people what they need, but there is a level of that goes through. No, I mean, some things like the industry is evolving and topics drop off and new topics have to come in. I teach NetAcad college at my local college. I teach CCNA NetAcad classes, and I'm going through that. And I was like, man, when I took my CCNA, we taught RIP, right? We don't even teach RIP in the CCNA program anymore.
Yeah.
And things are just changing. So
I'm kind of glad that one's gone, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
So.
RIP, literally.
I don't know.
Literally,
Yeah.
RIP.
It's a good protocol to learn how dynamic routing works, right? I like that
Right, it's very
OSPF's there,
basic.
but OSPF's harder to teach people that have never done any networking before. RIP was fairly easy,
That's
right?
true.
It's 6 hops, right? We picked this one because it's 6 and that one's 12. Trying
true.
to teach LSA databases to college students that have never done anything. I was like, okay, we're going to break it down really easy, right? It's not that hard.
So I wanted to talk, dig a little bit into the blueprint, if that's all right, since we, you
Yeah,
know, if
sure.
that's okay. I just want to ask a few questions about the blue. I'm sure these guys have questions as well, but like when I read the whole blueprint, it looks like it's like half SD-WAN, which makes sense because I think SD-WAN is generally what Cisco has kind of banking on for hybrid cloud connectivity. And then there's actually a decent amount of this that, and I don't know if this is the intention or not, but is more, I would say, generic. Like it's IPsec based because, of course, you know, internet connectivity to the cloud is IPsec based, but it doesn't reference SD-WAN specifically. So was that conscious, or is it just like, hey, really, we want SD-WAN to be like the focus of this cert, you know, or was it kind of like, yeah, some people use SD-WAN, some people don't. Let's kind of cover the board.
Oh man, great question. Great question. And I will say the short answer is it was very much purposeful, and it was one of the things that myself and a couple of the other kind of tech leads that help with some of the certification pieces were really very focused on at the start. And so I'll speak for myself. When I looked at the certification and we were going through it, I very much wanted it to be relevant for what people are actually building today. Not what we want people to go towards, not the marketing and the strategic direction and what people might kind of build and be standard in 5 years, right? I was okay if we had like an SD-WAN. Certainly, it's not like SD-WAN's not happening today, but it's not everywhere. Right? We talk to customers all the time that their connection to the cloud is just a simple IPsec tunnel, right? And sometimes the IPsec tunnel is between a Cisco device on-prem and then a Cisco device in the cloud. And sometimes it's a Cisco device on-prem to a native termination point in the cloud. And then sometimes they're trying to figure out how SD-WAN works. And so the pitch for the certification early on was we wanted it to be relevant today for what people are actually doing when building and designing cloud connectivity today. And so there were multiple ways that we know people are doing it today. I don't know what the breakdown is, right? It's probably some percentage is kind of, we'll call it the more traditional kind of IPsec based model. Other ones are more software defined approaches. Maybe it's 50-50, maybe it's 60-40, doesn't matter. But there's enough of it happening in both directions that we wanted the certification to test on both sides of that, to show that if you are truly concentrating, if you want to be a specialist in secure cloud connectivity, you need to understand all of these. Because maybe you're taking the certification because you work at an enterprise, right? You are part of a team at one company that is doing this. And if that's the case, sure, you've probably picked one or the other and you're heading in one direction. But a lot of our target market for these are going to be network consultants, partners that are working with lots of customers doing this. And they have to understand all of these potential options and make good design recommendations, good architectural decisions that align to the business requirements and the technical requirements. And so we couldn't just say, oh, well, SD-WAN's the future. It should just be SD-WAN, right? We needed it at least for this version, right? And now that we have the published blueprint, roadmap, and updates, right, we will adjust this over time. And if we get to a point where nobody's doing just old school IPsec anymore, that'll age off the exam. But for now, it needed to cover them all. The other thing is we already have 2 certifications just about SD-WAN. Right. And so it made no sense to do another certification that was just SD-WAN. And that was a big part of what we did during the blueprint development process is we didn't want to replace the SD-WAN implementation or design exams. We didn't want to just be a subset of one of those. And so it was like we wanted this one to very much to focus on the use case of cloud connectivity, not the technology of SD-WAN. Because you could also say, well, Hank, you've also got a security concentration on VPNs. Right. And we do. And so this is one of those, and part of this will be, we'll see how the community adapt, like the feedback is, but this is kind of like a bridging hybrid type of a certification that touches a few different places. And one of the questions and conversations we had is like, which track does it go in? Does it go enterprise? Does it go security? Does it go data center? And we went back and forth on a lot of pieces. And eventually the decision was made, okay, let's focus in. We're going to focus this in kind of at the enterprise level, because again, the pitch is this is around helping organizations design a WAN that includes the cloud. We pitched that as more of an enterprise topic versus data center or security. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Alex, I know you had, when we were first talking about, man, I remember you were like, hey, why didn't they do data center? Because data center connects to the cloud more than the enterprise does. So I actually kind of want to hit that over to you. Like, does that make sense to you? Do you?
Yeah, it does. I'm glad he clarified a lot of these points because, yeah, I did. This was my first reaction, Hank, was a lot of, I'm big in the data center world with ACI and, cloud ACI now is cloud network controller. That's why my question was, is there going to be another track around that? Because there's so many, like you said, it just happens that you fit this towards enterprise. It could have easily been data center, and then that might have been the topic. So it's awesome to hear you just clarify that part of it.
Yeah, to some extent, we have to pick and choose, right? Cisco's huge, and everybody thinks we've got like unlimited resources, right? There's not that many of us that like go through and do and focus in on this part of it, and it's so we have to kind of pick and choose where's the best entry point at any given point in time. We did the same thing with the DevNet Expert, right? I had a lot of people be like, well, it's very like enterprisey focused, right? What about all of us that are doing like automation with Cisco, but collaboration? I was like, yeah, we had to pick one place to start. So we started at like the network automation side of it. Similar here. When we talked about cloud connectivity, yes, most of the cloud connectivity is connecting to the data center, but it's more like, and it's up for debate, but the position we took is the technology used to connect the data center to the cloud is more WAN types of technology, enterprise types of technology than traditional, like in the data center technology, right? Nobody's standing up like a Nexus switch at the edge of the data center to terminate like a VPN. Lots of reasons. We don't support IPsec on a Nexus switch, so clearly that's not going to be there. Maybe we could tunnel some VXLAN over but I don't know if that's a great architecture to go through. And so when we looked at it, we're like, okay, if it's going to be IPsec, SD-WAN based, right? It's enterprise or security. And then when we sat back and said, okay, we're going to focus in on kind of the building of the network, a well-designed WAN type of a piece. And sure, it's encrypted and there's some security implements on that, but it's more enterprise than what we would expect a security professional be dealing with today. And so
more about routing and connectivity than security itself. I see what you're going.
Mm-hmm. Well, on that note, real quick. So in the design section, there's actually, I wanted to bring this up specifically because it actually talks about the cloud native security and not like a Cisco security product. So is that also intentional? Is there like bringing in other products as well that might happen with updates?
Yeah, on 2.4, I think is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So I was just scrolling to that part in the blueprint over here so I could look at it. So it's an interesting one, and in the conversations that go back and forth, sometimes I always wish we never would do it for all sorts of reasons, but like the different development versions of the blueprints along the way and how it goes through and the things that showed up. One of the things to look at, if you look at the design section, we have the first three are recommend, recommend, recommend. And those all kind of tie back to things that are kind of very specific. And there's things that are in there related to the network architecture and how you might deal with it and basically make decisions based on, is it IPsec, is it SD-WAN, all of those. And then 2.4 is describe. This is one of those things that I learned really heavily when I got onto the learning and certifications team and really started to get into like the sausage making of certifications. Is those first words in every blueprint, those determine the level of cognitive knowledge that we expect on a particular topic. And so if you look at 2.4, it's describe the cloud native security policies for AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. Describe is kind of I don't know if it's the lowest, but it's like a lower level of cognitive understanding and expectations. We just like, do you understand the terms that are there? What's possible? Kind of like what's available, where recommend is a higher level. We want you to be able to kind of understand it, make determinations that are there. And then you'll see like in 3.0, we get into some configure tasks that are in there. The reason I go through all this is we knew early on when we went through this, like we couldn't ignore public cloud specific pieces that are there. Like there's a certain level of understanding of how the public cloud works, particularly for once traffic gets into the public cloud. But we didn't want to write certification questions and test on the specifics of any one of the public cloud security pieces that are there. But we do want to make sure that the people that are getting the certification understand them enough that are there. And so that's why like describe is in there. It's a basic understanding of these topics. So if you're going to plug your WAN in to AWS or Azure or Google, you know what you're going to have to deal with once you get there. And so that's kind of why that's in there at that point. Is it's an acceptance and an understanding that you're going to eventually pass traffic into the public cloud, and you need to understand what those security policies are because it's different, right? You're not going to log into your AWS router and type IP access list.
Right.
Someplace maybe that gets typed into an actual switch or router in the cloud, but you're not going to do it. You have to know how to do that with security groups in AWS and then whatever the other clouds call them. And so hopefully, does that make sense? Like how we kind of fit those in at an appropriate level?
Yeah, if you're gonna play in their playground, you got to know the rules, right? So yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, actually, the recommend thing is a good call out, Hank, because and again, I've been out of Cisco for a year now, but when I was helping write questions, recommend seems like a new one. I hadn't seen recommend before, but I do like describe, configure, all that level. I think recommend's a new one. I haven't seen that before.
Yeah, I was gonna say Tim and I pretty much lived and died by that when we were doing our CCIE. We were like looking at the blueprint for the lab, and it's like, no, it just says describe, man. It's like not configure.
Absolutely. And it's amazing how much time we spend when we're working on these certifications on verb selection. Tim, you probably dealt with some of our psychometricians and our learning experts and like learning science folks, and they are brilliant people, and getting on calls with them and say, no, we use this word because it means this and it fits in. Yeah. And we try to be consistent so that when people are studying for the CCIE, they can look at it and say, okay, I only need to know it to this level of depth because there's so much potential that's there. And if we've just got describe, which you don't need to go to the depth of like analyzing logs and troubleshooting and knowing how to debug it, can you describe it, right? And for me, it's always like, if it's at the describe level, you should be able to go to either a junior engineer and help them understand kind of fundamentally what's going on, or you should be able to sit down with your boss and in about 5 sentences explain what's going on, right? That's the describe level.
Explain like I'm 5. I always put it
same
at
here.
that level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. I know we're coming up on time, so I just want to kind of shoehorn this question in here. So, probably, I know you just released the announcement for the certification. There's been quite a bit of buzz about it. I know people are making YouTube videos. I've seen a lot of chatter about it. So, I guess maybe one of the pressing questions is when can we expect to see training for the certification?
You gonna do a book, Hank?
No more books for me. Nope. I did one. That was enough. I've got an ISBN. I've still got stacks of them actually in my closet if anybody wants an old kind of vintage CCNA cloud book. So one of the things that we changed kind of as part of Certpocalypse and all these other pieces is we wanted to decouple training from certifications a little bit. And there's pros and cons to doing that. The biggest pro for us is we no longer were blocked on either side of it. It gives us the ability to create training that we hear from our customers that they need, even if there's not necessarily a certification specifically for it. And it also allows us to put out a certification without waiting for a training class to be built. I know a lot of people build training that's out there. I love the fact I've done them, right? We were talking before we started recording about training that I've done. And so there's lots of different ways to get training that are out there. And there's different types of training material that's put together. But when we at Learning and Certification build a training class tied to a certification and a blueprint, it takes us a little while to do that, right? Because we have to make sure it aligns to the blueprint. We have to get labs written. We have to buy the infrastructure because all of our training, right? That's one of the things that's unique about Cisco's learning and certification classes is all of our training classes come with hands-on labs. Users can get access to the infrastructure, run through the exercises and the blueprint. It takes a little while. And so we don't want to have to wait to put something out there because there are people that are doing this job today that we feel would benefit and want to go use a blueprint and earn a certification and go out there and do it. And so sure, we don't have kind of, here's the specific class for this new certification that's there. What we do try to do is provide links and recommendations for learning that aligns to the blueprint. So maybe it's not as kind of cookie cutter and completely aligned and here's a class to take, but go check this out that's here. We've got these webinars that have been done that are related. We have these other parts of these other classes that do exist that you can take advantage of. And so we no longer hold up for those. That said, there are several people involved in putting a blueprint together. One of the representatives, one of the stakeholders on every one of our blueprint discussions is the team from our group that does the training. And so they are working through the process. And so when a blueprint comes out, we've already started the process of figuring out what training is going to be needed, but it will take some time to launch. Another adjustment we're doing on our own training development is moving from what used to be a we'll use the terms, right? Very, very waterfall model of training creation to a more agile model. We've had a few courses that have already started to be released this way where we don't wait until we have the entire 40 or 60 hour course ready to push out there. We'll start trickling them out in different modules and assemble them in ways. So again, a long answer to what could have been a short one is soon we'll start to see official training for it. But even before then, if you look at the blueprint, you can find places you can go and pick up the training on some of those topics.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that is one of the cool things about this particular certification is all these things are kind of just like concrete elements from networking that were used to connect to the cloud. So you can find this in a lot of other places, especially from Cisco, because these are all pretty foundational elements that are involved in other Cisco trainings and certifications and things like that. So I think that's really cool.
Okay, yeah, I think you're right, Chris, that we are just about at time. Any last thoughts, Alex, Chris?
Yeah, I guess maybe one last thing we should probably plug since this is an episode about the certification itself. So Hank, when can people get out there and take this certification?
Oh man, I should have looked. It's the one question I didn't look up before it went through. So it's in the fall. I don't know the exact date, and I can probably dig it up and you guys can attach it or post-production, like insert it. But it's in the fall. And that's one of the other things we do with the new certifications is we try to give folks like we expect people to probably take 3 to 6 months kind of to do a study and prep for a certification. So we put the blueprint out that far in advance. So it's going to be sometime in the fall, September to October to November-ish. But I'll check with the team and look up exactly when it's out there. It's I think we've released what the date for first testing is. I just don't happen to know it. So
September 20th. I had it on the screen.
You knew. That doesn't seem fair.
It's a trick question, man. Look at him trying to set traps.
I cheated,
for
but
you.
I thought I was throwing him a softball, man. I thought he had it.
Yeah. To be honest, to my credit, I knew it was the fall, right? September's definitely the fall. So.
But I'm in Australia. It's not going to be fall in September for me. That's spring, baby.
That's a good point.
That's fair.
Just kidding. That's
true. No, yeah, I don't have anything. This was a great conversation. Thanks for coming on, Hank. You answered a lot of questions I had. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other questions that could be asked, but this was great for an introduction to all this.
Yeah. I think it's very exciting to see Cisco having these kind of conversations about cloud connectivity and things like that. I think it kind of reassures our point that, cloud is important. Cloud networking especially is important. It may have taken a while for the networking people to get a seat at the table, for the discussions within cloud. But I'm glad to see, Cisco reinforcing that a little bit, and hopefully we see more. I'd love to see some kind of maybe some multi-cloud, inter-cloud type certifications in the future. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, thanks, Hank. This has been great. Thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate it.
Oh, of course. Thank you guys for joining or inviting me to come and chat. It's funny, when Tim sent me the note, we've been working on this one for so long, I didn't even realize it had gone public. And I was like, oh, is it public now? Sure. Yeah, happy to talk about it. Let me know.
Surprise.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was great. I was really glad we could make this work. Where can people find you online, Hank? We ask all of our guests this.
Yeah. So I'm not quite as active on the social medias as I used to be. My day job is I'm kind of back into engineering and operations. We're building a new data center. We're trying to do some migration and some updates and implementation. But I am still out on Twitter. So at HF Preston is probably the best way to grab me. And you can find me over on LinkedIn, but I don't spend a whole lot of time over there these days. An interesting place to follow me if you're looking for pieces. I do blog on the Cisco's blog platforms over on the learning and certification side. So blogs.cisco.com/author/Hank Preston. You can find and kind of follow the pieces that are there. And I'm looking at kind of getting some more regular status, right? I was peaks and valleys on kind of getting some content out there, but our marketing team is working and pushing me hard to get a little more consistent. So keep an eye out for that, and we'll see what new goodies I can come up with.
Cool. All right,
Awesome.
everybody. Well, if you liked what you heard, go ahead and subscribe, podcatcher. These guys are way better at doing the plug than I am. Follow us on YouTube, smash that like button. I'm counting all the ones in my head here. Go to our website, cablestoclouds.com. And I'll let somebody else do the outro next time because I suck at it.
Oh man, you're doing great.
Yeah, you did great. That was good.
All right. Catch us on the next episode, and see you later.
Hi everyone, it's Chris, and this has been the Cables to Clouds podcast. Thanks for tuning in today. If you enjoyed our show, please subscribe to us in your favorite podcatcher, as well as subscribe and turn on notifications for our YouTube channel to be notified of all our new episodes. Follow us on socials at Cables to Clouds. You can also visit our website for all of the show notes at cablestoclouds.com. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.